Dak Prescott now has the largest guaranteed contract, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, it was a $240 million contract with $231 million that's guaranteed, which is $1 million more than Deshaun Watson.
So with all this conversation about the quarterbacks, already though, in Cleveland we saw with Joe Flacco and how they played down the stretch, they look like they got a pretty good roster, and the Cowboys just went into Cleveland and throttled them.
Mm-hmm.
But after 1 week then, Dan Orlovsky put out a tweet saying there are certain things that the Browns must consider. Stephen A. Smith even sounded off on what is happening with Cleveland, and they both believe that it starts and ends for the Browns season with who their starting quarterback is, Deshaun Watson. So let's play the Stephen A. Smith clip first.
One of the statements that you want to make is that if you're a contender, you want to beat up on people who are trash compared to you. And that's what the Cleveland Browns were, trash. They were horrible. Now, I'm not saying they're a horrible team, but they might have a horrible quarterback. We don't know that yet. I'm certainly not going to sit up there and say that about Deshaun Watson definitively. But my brother, if you are watching, my God, it's really, really bad. I mean, Houston was a long, long time ago. You understand? But and it looks so bad for Deshaun Watson right now. I'm like 0 for 10 passing on throws of 15 or more air yards on Sunday. 0 for 10? 0 for 10. I mean, he couldn't throw a pass past 5 yards. It was really that bad. Yeah, you don't have the 2 tackles. Yeah, you don't have Nick Chubb, who's out for the first 4 games of the season, obviously, because he's still healing from the knee injury. We got that part. But damn, you got Amari Cooper out there. You got Njoku out there. You got some weapons to do absolutely nothing. I was listening to you coming in, and you're talking about Dorsey and the offensive coordinator, and it's not his system, etc. Figure it out. Nobody want to hear that. You got to figure this out. You got $230 million. Up until yesterday morning, Deshaun Watson was the highest paid quarterback in NFL history.
Yeah.
Now you are the second by $1 million. That's it, okay? Nobody wants to hear, okay, that you know, it's going to take some time. Well, you had enough damn time. And you're looking at Cleveland right now. And by the way, I know C.D. Lamb was putting on the show, and Denzel Ward had a hard day. I get it. I understand. I was watching it. But if you look at the Cleveland Browns, if their offense had given them anything,
totally different game.
If they had given them anything, it would have been a totally different game. You could see demoralization kicking in like, yo, it's pretty bad out here. The only thing that I saw worse than the Browns yesterday were the Carolina Panthers.
Well, there you have it. Stephen A. Smith not saying that he is a horrible quarterback, but saying he played horribly. But he wasn't the only person that talked about this, and there's no debate here, guys. Cleveland thinks that they can compete to win the AFC North and make a run in the postseason. They think they have that type of roster. But it's all going to hang on the balance of Deshaun Watson, and he looked overwhelmed. Now the Cowboys under Zimmer now as a defensive coordinator, they were humming. They were looking good. But for a team playing at home, that probably was the worst game you could ask for a home opener because of how it happened. Losing, really, it was an uncompetitive game. Let's hear what Dan Orlovsky had to say, because Dan tweeted out earlier that there might be some serious consideration.
Quarterback's a problem in Cleveland, and if I was Kevin Stefanski, I would be thinking long and hard about Jameis Winston and moving him to be my starting quarterback. They can't run anything in Cleveland. One, Kevin Stefanski, the beauty of this offense is that play-action pass, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Gary Kubiak offense can't run it with Deshaun because Deshaun isn't ready to operate the play-action pass. He doesn't see the field well. He's not throwing in rhythm and timing. He's missing receivers by 6-7 yards, not feet.
So right there already, Dan Orlovsky is saying this is a problem. This is a problem that you might have to seriously consider. And I can't even figure out my hair right now. Sorry, Brad. For them, you're going to have to seriously consider Jameis Winston, a guy that also went 30 for 30 or 30-30, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, gives some of the best pregame speeches you are ever going to hear, and sometimes maybe maybe question. But is that too irrational? To me, I'm all for understanding that Deshaun needs to be better. And I'm not sold that he is what they're hoping him to be with given everything that's happened. But is it the right answer after 1 week to just throw it all aside for one game to go to Jameis Winston? I think, and also you're contractually, you might as well ride it out with Deshaun. It's one game of the 2024 NFL season.
Yeah, I mean, what, it was $75 million or more in cap space that Deshaun Watson's going to hit for 25 and 26 next year. I don't think one game's going to sway anybody in the Browns organization. I mean, look, Watson actually didn't do bad before getting injured last year. It's just a matter of whether or not this guy can stay healthy. Obviously, he sucked yesterday. There's no doubt about it. And he was playing horribly. But I don't think that the verdict's out on Deshaun Watson. And Stephen A was talking about how far away Houston was, how far away he was removed from Houston when he was playing in those Houston days, and he was an elite quarterback then. He's not that far removed from that, to be quite frank. Yeah, a couple of years, but nothing too crazy in my opinion. It's just been the injury factor.
We're up to 5 now.
Yeah,
5 years.
Is it 5?
The other part too. I mean, we want to talk about. We talked with Dean Kramer earlier, and this hair, I tell you what. But I talked with Dean earlier, and we were talking about getting in the mental mindset and being able to play. There's a few things that happened for Deshaun Watson over the years that might have aged him. And then also on top of it, the physical part, he didn't play football either during time frames. Like he sat out. He wasn't playing. And then all of a sudden, you're trying to find it. Now he did have the shoulder injury last year, and he's trying to work himself back. But whatever it is, there's a drastic difference of the players with the two. It almost seemed like things weren't either processing quick enough or he felt a little bit skittish. And maybe that's because the Cowboys looked like they were pressuring all day long. And obviously, if you feel like you can't sit in there, I will say he did make a great throw to Amari Cooper when he got drilled. And it should have been a touchdown. Amari, unfortunately, couldn't bring it in, but it was a ball he usually catches, But for Cleveland, man, they're stuck with him. Like they truly are. I mean, the spot track for Deshaun Watson moving forward, using spot track for his contract situation, the dead cap's unbelievable. Even after 2026, it's remarkable. Looking at it right now, in 2024, he's going to have $119 million this year over 2025 over $118 million. In 2026, he has dead cap of $53 million. And then also in 2027, it will finally jump down to $26 million. It's a lot of years, guys. It looks like, whether you like it or not, it's Deshaun Watson time for Cleveland.
Crappy quarterback for a crappy organization. Sometimes life just works out.
And Baker Mayfield just balling down in Tampa Bay.
Imagine if the Browns had kept Baker and used that money and all those draft assets that they traded and actually just like built around him. They'd be Super Bowl potentially favorites.
It also doesn't help that they've drafted pretty terribly over the last couple of years too.
Yeah,
I mean, not that they've had draft picks to really work with over the last few seasons, but they haven't really gotten a ton of contributions from a lot of their draft classes recently. Now, obviously, the guys before the trade, they've gotten that, but ever since the Watson trade, you lose the first rounders and a bunch of other picks. We kind of talk about this with the Ravens, where you have to hit on your picks that you have, because it's important when you have obviously a quarterback on that big of a contract, but also when you're trading away the high value picks. Well, that all of a sudden means those other late rounders, they become more important. And Cleveland just has not been able to do that. I'm not saying they haven't had any good draft picks over the last 3 years, but they've needed to hit more than they have.
And they haven't. And then also on top of it, you don't have Nick Chubb, who has been your anchor, the guy that just goes to work. And if it's not Saquon Barkley's having, the strongest thighs, it probably is Nick Chubb. That dude's a monster. Your identity's kind of lost. But for Cleveland, they are a good team. I think they're going to rebound, but it's all on. And the heat is up for Cleveland, and it's going to stay that way for the rest of the season.
And you know what? Shout out Jerome Ford for, at the end of the game, scoring one of the most useless touchdowns.
He won
in
somebody.
Football. But as a fantasy owner of Jerome Ford. That's what we like to see. Force your way in the end zone, even if the game's over, baby. That's what fantasy's all about.
You know,
Garbage time, baby.
Exactly.
that's all that matters. But here's the other part, and it's not even a Deshaun Watson issue, but you said for Cleveland. I mean, look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's still trying to figure out their quarterbacks. Justin Fields played average quarterback play. He made some plays. He played football, no touchdowns, but didn't make any costly mistakes. And Pittsburgh, once again, just relies on their defense, makes plays, and they win games. That's a culture organizationally. That's why Pittsburgh's hanging around. That's why Cleveland has failed to have success since they were reinstated or got a team back after the Ravens left.